Hi, my name is Gloria Tabby. I'm an equity and inclusion specialist. 21st of March is celebrated as Harmony Day in Australia, but around the world it is the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. As a country, it is important that we reflect on the histories of this day, which dates back to 1960 and in a township called Shepville in South Africa. On this day, protesters in Shepville, South Africa, gathered to voice their concerns about the apartheid. Police began to fire at the innocent people, and some 69 were murdered and killed. The international community condemned the incident and established a commemorative day on the 21st of March as a remembrance of what happened at Shepville, South Africa, and to inspire people all over around the world to commitment to fighting racism. In Australia, 21st of March is celebrated as Harmony Day with no real acknowledgement or reference to the atrocities of racism associated with the day. In Australia, it is true, we live in a multicultural society. As such, community cohesion is important for the overall harmony we all aspire to. However, when the story of the 21st of March and other atrocities from Australia, as well as around the world, are largely left out of the conversation, it appears that Australia does not want to talk about racism or deal with racism in any constructive way. Recent research by the Scowen Foundation on Social Cohesion confirmed that around 80% of Australians, 80% of us believe there's a lot of racism in this country. Our successful multicultural story must also include dealing with racism by firstly acknowledging its pervasiveness nature in Australia. Those who are from racialized group, myself included, know there's a lot of racism. So pretending is not a problem here is missing the point and the opportunity to work together to stop racism from impacting on our lives. We've seen it in other countries. In Australia, racism is woefully present in many forms, from interpersonal street slurs, especially during the start of COVID-19, to serious institutional and systemic racism which routinely produces negative outcomes for our First Nation peoples, Black people, and other racialized groups. One example of institutional racism can be seen among our First Nation people, when although they make up to around 3% of the general population, but they make up over 23% in our prison population. Recent research by Debbie Bargali draw on experiences of Indigenous Australians in the public service. Dr. Bargali concluded that Indigenous employees have paid and continue to pay a high price for racism. The study also confirmed they were marginalized and ignored and were twice as more likely to live the public service altogether due to racism. The impact of racism on those on the receiving end is real, is pervasive and damaging on health, well-being, and the inability to participate fully in society. Racism also costs billions of dollars to the Australian economy each year, research tells us. Around 37 billion per year. We are here today because there is power in the people. Ordinary people in our communities are saying enough is enough with racism in this country, the ongoing issues of racism, and not wanting to shy away from naming the elephant in the room. Racism not welcome was born. So how can we possibly get rid of racism in our systems and society when we don't allow it to be talked about? The Inner West Council, in collaboration with Inner West Multicultural Network and Addison Road Community Development Centre, came up with Racism Not Welcome to make a public stand in this region and subsequently the whole nation. We understand that simply putting signs up doesn't automatically stop racism in communities, but it does force us to have a conversation about racism, something that continues to affect so many of us, yet it is inadequately talked about, studied, or understood. We've seen areas where people are opposing to having the signs up as if the mere signage and the utterance of the word racism is more damaging than those of whom continue to bear the brunt of racism every day. We would like to acknowledge the importance of 21st of March as an International Day of the Elimination of Racial Discrimination and not simply a Harmony Day. We believe to dismantle and defeat racism, we must be able to name it and normalize conversations about it. Through this project, the power of conversation and stories of racism from our community, we will hear people tell their stories about racism. We invite you to reflect with us, stand with us, learn with us what racism really is, to develop the understanding to deal with it appropriately, so that together we can dismantle racism and defeat its hold on our society. There's power in stories, so may the stories you hear today allow you to be inspired and act against racism. And together, racism can be eliminated so society can experience true harmony. Thank you.